Thank you for joining us today for our Zoom webinar. We are excited to be able to offer education during this time of physical distancing. This webinar is being recorded and will be archived for future reference. Since everyone's situation is unique, and the information being provided in this presentation is for educational purposes and not specific advice for your situation. Should you have specific questions about your situation, please contact your support worker. At the end of the presentations, we will have a Q&A session, and we will do our best to answer your general questions. During the presentations, please feel free to add your questions in a Q&A box located at the bottom of your screen. If you move your mouse around, you should be able to see the different icons and the Zoom controls there. And should you have any comments or concerns during the presentation, please type them in the chat box. Today we have the pleasure of having two guest speakers with us, Noelannah Neubauer and Adriana Ríos Rincón, who will be talking about the research related to living well with dementia, harnessing technology as a tool. Noelannah is a postdoctoral fellow at the University of Waterloo, and she is also an occupational therapy student at the University of Alberta. Noelannah completed her PhD in Rehabilitation Science at the University of Alberta in August 2019 under the supervision of Dr. Lily Liu, where she focused on developing a framework and guideline to manage the risks associated with critical dementia-related wandering. She is the co-founder of the International Consortium of Dementia and Wayfinding and is a highly qualified personnel with AgeWell and CEE. Her research interests include dementia, wayfinding, assistive technologies, policies, and aging in place. Adriana is an assistant professor of the Department of Occupational Therapy at the University of Alberta. She is an AgeWell network investigator. Her current research is devoted to investigating the use of assisted technologies to assess and promote cognitive skills and engagements in play in individuals with motor and cognitive impairment, including older adults living with dementia. She is also interested in exploring the use of information and communication technologies and artificial intelligence to support decisions and about transitions across the continuum of care in older adults and individuals with disabilities. A reminder to add your questions in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen, and if you have any comments or concerns, then please add these in the chat box. Once the presentations are completed, we will address as many questions as we can. Thank you. I will now turn it over to our presenters. Noelannah, please begin when you are ready.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dina, and thank you, everyone. So the learning objectives for my talk, I'm going to speak on behalf of specifically locating technologies for those with dementia that are at risk of getting lost and going missing. Of course, this could apply to other populations. They don't just have to be with those with dementia. But from this webinar presentation, I hope that you'll be able to learn about the existing technologies that you can use to mitigate the risks that are associated with someone with dementia or someone with a cognitive impairment from getting lost. I hope that you'll be able to identify different components of locating technologies that will help you as an individual make an informed decision when choosing a device. And then lastly, I hope that you'll be able to learn about the past, the present, and the future direction of the research in this field. So our team, I have been very fortunate that I started my work in this area over the last 5 years when I started my PhD in 2015. So the individuals that I've been working with along the way that focus on this area of dementia and getting lost, we're led underneath the supervision of Dr. Lily Liu, who is the Dean of Applied Health Science at the University of Waterloo. She was formerly the chair of the Department of Occupational Therapy at the University of Alberta, hence why you see a little bit of a connection between the two. We also have Dr. Antonio Miguel Cruz, who has an engineering background, and he provides a different perspective as we begin to look at these different devices. We also have Dr. Christine Dom, who is an occupational therapist herself, and then there's myself. So a question that I always end up getting is, why exactly do you research in this field? And so I always like to use this slide just to show why. It is estimated that 3 of 5 persons with dementia will wander and become lost. And for many families, it can be one of the most emotionally wrenching experiences. The consequences of getting lost can vary from minor injuries, high search and rescue costs, and even death. And for the case of some individuals, such as Shin No from Coquitlam, BC, who became lost in 2013 or never found. And so this really begins to raise concern as to how exactly this issue can be managed. So when I'm going to speak specifically on behalf of locating technologies today, I always like to iterate that this is only one of many different strategies that we need to think of when trying to keep this population safe. While locating devices definitely can help, we also have to keep in mind, what if the person isn't wearing the device? What happens if the device hasn't been charged? If we look at those downfalls, we always need to make sure that we have some kind of backup strategy so we can still try to keep this the individual safe in the event that they do get lost and go missing. So different concepts that our team has explored in addition to these devices are things such as dementia-friendly communities. Do we need a community alert system in the event that someone's lost and they have no piece of technology on them? In addition to risk reduction strategies, such as guidelines to manage the risk that I developed as part of my doctoral thesis. And then, of course, a huge component, which the Alzheimer's Society of London and Middlesex has done a wonderful job in, is on awareness and education of this area. How much do we need to educate the public in terms of how we can try to keep this population safe? But diving into the topic that I plan on speaking about, on these locating devices, the easiest way of explaining this is that these devices can be split into 3 different types. The biggest one that I'm sure many of you have heard of is called the Global Positioning System, or GPS devices. And an analogy to think of as to how GPS devices work, it's almost like an X marks the spot. So if a person has the device on them, all you have to do is look on your screen, and it's not going to give you the exact location to the nearest centimeter, but it gives you approximately within about 1 meter as to where that person is. So it's quite quick, it's quite fast when you're able to find them. However, what I'll discuss in my presentation is that GPS devices tend to be the most effective when we're looking at outdoor locations. The minute you put someone into an indoor location, whether it's a concrete building and a mall, tends to have its downfalls in terms of trying to have that precision in finding that person. Then the other one is Bluetooth, which is really up and coming, and Bluetooth is really good in terms of indoor locations. So if you end up looking at places like inside of a mall, Bluetooth uses Wi-Fi to be able to trigger where exactly that person is. Similar to GPS, it's almost like an X marks the spot. And then another one that is quite common, especially within Ontario and British Columbia, is the use of something called radio frequency identification, or RFID for short. And the best way of being able to describe what exactly RFID devices do, it's almost like that game of Marco Polo. I don't know if any of you would remember that game, but if you would end up, you close your eyes and then you'd say Marco, and then you'd hear people say Polo in the background. As you got closer, you'd be able to hear their voices become louder and louder. That's the same way that these devices work. It's really old school in the sense that this technology was developed back in World War II, and it's used in a device called Project Lifesaver. And so it essentially uses radio frequency to send it off, and then as you get closer to where that person is, again, the radio frequency signal gets much larger. So that's a better way of being able to do that. So diving in further into global positioning systems, there tends to be 2 different types that I've been able to foresee over the last couple years that have been involved in this area. The first one is the commercial devices. So these are the ones that you purchase, you have to pay a subscription fee typically every month. And these are the ones where the company has specifically designed the technology or the GPS device for someone that has a cognitive impairment. And they come in different ways that you can wear them. So you have a watch, as you can see on the left-hand side of the screen. It has different options. So this comes from a company called Safe Tracks, which is based out of Red Deer, Alberta, where the feature is that some individuals with dementia, may not necessarily be happy with wearing the device. You want to make sure it's on them. So they do have a lock feature where you can lock it onto their hand. Again, there's different pros and cons when you think about that, because how ethically sound is it for you to lock it on someone's wrist? But this is a currently available product. In addition to that, there are the lanyards, so where you can wear it around the person's neck, or you can take it and you can put it into a purse, or you can put it into a bag if someone tends to go outside all the time, or even a pocket. And then another one that is quite common is the use of an insole of a shoe. So all you have to do is take that one insole, put it in the person's shoe, and then that will be able to determine where exactly that person is. The way that these devices tend to work is that you put the device on and then you choose something called a geofence. So as a care partner, what you do is you choose a safe location as to where is that safe area, that if the person's within the area, you're fine, you don't need to know. But then as soon as that individual with dementia that's wearing the device, as soon as they pass that boundary that you set, so let's say around my house, as soon as they go outside and have surpassed that geofence I've set for them, then I would receive an alarm no matter where I am, and I get a text message or I get an alert through a various app just telling me that the person has left that boundary. And so you need to, so then that gives you a cue that maybe you need to watch and look and see where they're going. And so this one has a lot more research that's been embedded within the locating devices. In fact, our research team, and I came at the very tail end of it, there was a project called the Locator Device Project that was funded through Alberta Health Services. And Dr. Lily Liu and Dr. Antoni Mingle-Cruz were actually a part of its entire duration. And the purpose of this study was to really see, is there a need for these devices for those that live with dementia? So the way that they had it work was they involved a series of dyads, so a person with dementia and then a care partner. And then they chose two different locations, so a more rural site, so Grand Prairie, which is the far northwest corner of Alberta, and then a more urban site. So the site that they chose for this study was in Calgary. And after using the device for a set period of time, it turned out to be a very successful project. Overall, people were incredibly excited with the use of the GPS device, and some of the feedback that came from these participants included things like it gave the care partner a peace of mind that if they ended up getting mixed up, that they'd have a way of locating the individual with dementia. For many care partners, it provided them with a sense of security just because now they knew where the individual with dementia was, even in cases when they were at work. It also gave them a comfort to know where they were all the time. And it also gave them freedom and peace of mind. And this project was so successful that at the very end of it, all of them wanted to continue to use the device. So it became unethical to remove the device at the end of the study. So for the first time ever, because this device is not embedded within the healthcare system, it's an off-the-shelf product, Alberta Health Services had to fund this device until they no longer needed it anymore. So that really showed just how much promise GPS devices can provide for care partners. The other type of GPS system, I like to call it phone. So we always think about the expensive products that we need to purchase, but in many times we forget about the ones that are already available on our phone or the mobile applications that you can download. So one of them, for all of us iPhone users, we have the Find My Friend feature. It is on your phone already, and so you can automatically, once you get approval from yourself and an individual with dementia that also has an iPhone, you can keep track of them and see where they are. Another one that I became aware of from quite a few individuals with dementia that I've worked with is an app called Life 360. And so the way that this one works is that you download the app and then you're able to see where the individual with dementia is. And then like Find My Friend's individual with dementia can see where you are. So there's a little bit of that synonymous relationship. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a little crafty on the Zoom here, and I'm going to share the screen on my phone. I was kind enough, I asked my husband moments before this presentation if he could download Life 360 so I can share with you what exactly this app looks like. So bear with me for 1 second here. All right, so now you can see my phone. And so this is the Life 360 app. So he likes to be a little bit funny. So you can essentially choose a profile photo. So you can see myself in the middle of the screen. This shows that I'm home. And then my husband, it shows what his battery life is. So I know how long will I have that his phone will be on. So I know where exactly he is. And then what you can do is I can click on him and I can see where he's at. And so I know that he is being good and he's working from home. He hasn't left the house yet. And then what you can do as well, because he just downloaded the app, we don't really have a history feature. But the nice thing with this is that you can actually look and you can see from a satellite signal. And in addition to it, you can see where he's been up to. So in the moments that he's had the phone, he hasn't left the house yet. But you can actually track even 1 to 2 days before to see where his activity is. So which is quite cool. And then other features that can be included in this application is that there's also a messaging feature. So let's say you're worried about them. I can send a message to my husband and ask him if everything is okay, and he can message me back. So this is just an option. And this one, it has add-in features where you pay for it. But if you just want the basic features, it's free for anyone to use. All right, so now I'm just gonna get back to my presentation here. And so, as I had mentioned, the other one is Bluetooth, so indoor location. So again, from SafeTracks, there's an option where you can install it. I've seen these on long-term care facilities, but again, it can be done in your home, where you can install it on the walls and essentially is able to track wherever the people have gone in front of that Bluetooth signal. But again, just like the where the commercial GPS devices, there's also the option of simply doing an Amazon search and just looking up GPS Bluetooth device, and you'll come across different ones such as the Tile. So this one there's no monthly feature. You can purchase it outright. I think these ones are about $30. So you can either attach it to their key ring, you can put it in their pocket, or I've also come across Bluetooth ones that are a sticker. So again, these are a cheaper option, but again, we have to keep in mind that it relies on Wi-Fi. So the minute they go outside that Wi-Fi zone, all of a sudden it's not working anymore. So we have to start thinking, okay, one device works, maybe we need to have a couple just to make sure that we're safe and we have our options covered. And then of course there's that RFID that I had briefly mentioned. And the main one that is available that I know has been widely promoted within Ontario is the RFID device through Project Lifesaver. Project Lifesaver operates a little bit differently because rather than you as the consumer purchasing the device, it's up to the police organizations to actually find funding to be able to cover it. And you end up wearing a wrist bracelet. It comes in different colors. And then in the event that you get lost, the police have your information. They use the little device that you see in the right-hand corner, where they do that game, almost that game of Marco Polo, where they go out in the field, and it just really helps the police decrease the time it takes for them to be able to find the individual with dementia that's gone missing. So again, this one largely focuses on the involvement of police versus GPS, and Bluetooth largely focuses on care partners or even for professional clinicians. So those are the main components. Now, what are the elements of locating devices? So what should you look out for? So there's a couple things. The first one, of course, cost is everything. We have so many other different costs that we have to worry about. GPS devices is just another thing. So when you're looking at a device, and if you're interested in something, you need to look to see just how much does that device cost. And if it's a commercial device from a company, you need to double check to see if there's a monthly fee, because quite a few of them offer that, have this as part of the device when you purchase it. Other ones, you need to look at contracts and warranties. We're trying to change this field, but at one point, even before the Alberta Locator device project, you had to subscribe to about a 1 to 2 year subscription. And of course, with dementia, we don't know where the individual with dementia, where their journey is going to go. We don't know how long they're going to need this device for. So from this project that took place in the province, SafeTracks at least, has changed it where now you do have a loaner program. You end up loaning the device, and when you no longer need it, you're not getting penalized for no longer needing it. So that is hopefully starting to change within this field. Product size and weight. Again, you don't want a big clunky device that screams that the person has dementia. So it's something that you need to look at. What is going to be a good fit for the individual with dementia to wear this device? How is the device worn? So as I had highlighted, there's multiple ways, whether it's a wrist bracelet, whether it's putting it in your pocket. There's all these different ways, and that really allows you to be able to customize and see what is a better fit for that specific person. Durability. So are they an active individual? Do they like to go outside? Are they near water all the time? It's something that we really want to look at because we want to make sure that this device is constantly working. Communications range and accuracy. Again, we want it to be as accurate as possible. So in many cases, we need to try to look at that to see what that device offers. And then even if the person does get lost or they need a help button, is that something else that you're interested in where they can end up pushing that button and you know that they're in trouble? Battery and charging, of course, is another thing. I know as care partners, you're really busy. So how are you supposed to remember to charge this device every night? There's some devices that only require it to be charged once a month, like Project Lifesaver, but then there's some that end up having to be recharged every evening. So again, you just really need to look at those details in those products. And then in terms of alarms, so there's different ways that they have it. So some offer geofencing. So if they end up bypassing that area, as I had described, if they remove the device, sometimes they have an alarm for that. So you know if they've removed it or not. A water alarm, so is there water that's gotten onto the device that might end up having an impact on its functionality? Where does it work? So as I described, GPS is great for outdoors, and then Bluetooth is great for indoors. So depending on what you're looking for, you have to keep that in your mind in the back burner. And then ease of use, again, it's because we're so restricted for time. Is this device truly easy to use? That's something to keep a lookout for. Customer care, is there someone on the back end? So if you have any troubles, you can give them a call and they can give you help. Again, some companies offer this, but some don't. And then required equipment. Do you need a computer to look at the geofence? Do you need a phone? Do you need internet connection? Training? So I know that those are a lot of things to think of. So the beautiful thing is what I've done. I'm sure many of you might have seen this website. Is back during my PhD, I worked alongside the Finding Your Way program, and we developed something called the Technology Products Repository. So the nice thing is you can ask those questions, but you can also go to this website. And the way that this website works is that we ask for the companies to upload their product. And then what you as a consumer can do is you can go on, and if you're interested in particular devices, you can click on the compare function, and then what it'll do is you'll put the devices side by side, and it'll have all those different questions such as cost, such as durability. So you don't always have to think about that. You can go right to this website, and this will help guide you along the way as you're trying to make an informed decision. All right, so that was more so on the devices themselves, and because I myself am a researcher, what exactly does the research tell us? So I was fortunate that I've been a part of many different projects in this field. One of them is that I worked alongside Dr. Adriana Ríos, who's presenting next, alongside my other colleagues, and we ran something called a scoping review just to see what type of technologies are currently out there to address this issue of persons with dementia that get lost and go missing. And so from this review, what we had ended up finding was that when we looked at the technology type from the gray literature, so when you quickly do a Google search, anyone can do this, GPS devices were the most common in the market, which wasn't that surprising just because, again, there's been a lot of hype about it. But then there's other things like alarms and sensors that, of course, we might want to think about. And then the radio frequency, just because of Project Lifesaver, there has been quite a bit that's available commercially. Then when you dive into the scholarly literature, so the stuff that us as researchers publish, again, similar thing where there's most of the research has been done among GPS devices, but again, you only see there was only 4 studies that were done. So there's still minimal evidence. We still need to really pump out to show just how effective these devices are or how ineffective. We still don't know. And then when we looked at the literature, we always like to look at something called technology readiness level, especially within the published literature. So while researchers are evaluating these technologies, how are they evaluating it? Are they evaluating it within a lab-based setting? Are they involving only young students that if something happens to them while they're young, they're fit, they're fine? Or are they actually testing in community-based environments? And what was in a way kind of surprising was that for the mobile locators, so the locating technologies, it only had a technology readiness level of about a 6. And what that means is that most of these devices have only been evaluated in a lab-based setting. They haven't been evaluated within a community-based setting. So while we want to focus on perhaps using locating technologies, keep that in the back of your mind that we still don't have a whole lot of evidence. So while you want to use that device, you need to think of other options and not just solely rely on a locating technology. In terms of some of the barriers that came up from this literature review, so a lot of people had mentioned, the cost of equipment. Sometimes these GPS devices can cost upwards to $400 a piece. But again, it didn't include some of those phone locating devices that are free for use. Sometimes the device is uncomfortable. There's concerns of damaging the device. Movements inside the room are not detected. So there are some, again, downfalls that come with these devices. But as a researcher, it's good for us to be able to see these gaps because it allows us to be able to see where we need to go in this field to further improve the use and even the evidence behind these devices. So what are the implications of all this? Well, there is a general acceptance that wander management technologies can reduce the risks of wandering and getting lost. But ethical issues definitely need to be addressed. When we did this review, we were interested to see, when we're monitoring someone, there is a lot of ethical issues that come behind it. You're tracking someone. Can you take advantage of them? There's all these different questions, and unfortunately, those questions are only just starting. So we need to continue this. Technology should be affordable and available. You think that this is a no-brainer, but it's still something that we still have to advocate for when we're speaking to these different companies. And of course, further research is needed to identify the technologies with high level of evidence for effectiveness and usability. So just some key take-home messages from my talk is that there are many different locating technologies to choose from to reduce the risks associated with getting lost, but one size does not fit all. You need to have other proactive strategies in place in the event that the device fails, and more research, of course, is needed. So that is my talk. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen so then Adriana can talk, and then we'll move on to questions at the very end.
Okay, thank you, Noelannah. I will share my screen. Okay. And now I will present. Okay, so seems like we're fine, right? Okay, so hello everyone, and thank you to the Alzheimer's Society London and Middlesex for the invitation. I am very happy to be here presenting. My name is Adriana Ríos Rincón, and I am an assistant professor at the Department of Occupational Therapy at the University of Alberta. My presentation is on the effects of computerized games on older adults. So I, first of all, I want to thank one of my students. So she's Christina Tran, and she worked with me, and she worked very hard in one of the topics that I will present today as part of her scholar stream in the program of occupational therapy. Also, she helped me with some of the slides, and she allowed me to use some of the slides that she created. For all of these days, because of the COVID-19 pandemic, I think we are more familiar with information and communication technologies. And we are also more familiar with the issues, the technology issues by using this technology. So let's hope that this presentation flows fine regarding the risk associated with the use of these technologies, but hopefully we'll be fine. The goals of the presentations for today, first I want to describe how computer mobile games have been used among older adults with typical aging, with dementia, and with cognitive impairment, based on results of systematic literature reviews. Also to learn about the evidence of the benefits and challenges of using computer or mobile games as a rehabilitation approach with older adults. And to review the results of 2 research studies about the effectiveness of mobile games with older adults with typical aging, with dementia, and with cognitive impairment. So we know that the number of older adults with cognitive impairment or dementia continue to rise, and several thinking skills such as memory and attention decline in older adults with cognitive impairment or dementia, which deteriorate their functioning in daily activities and ultimately the quality of life of seniors and their caregivers. Mild cognitive impairment in older adults is expected to increase by 10 to 20%, and a large portion of these will progress to dementia. According to the Alzheimer's Society of Canada, by 2031, it is expected that there will be around 1 million Canadians with some forms of dementia. Computerized cognitive training, or CCT, is the repetitive and intensive practice of standardized exercise used to improve cognitive functioning using computer technology that targets a single or multiple cognitive domains. For example, computerized cognitive training can range from training attention on a computer to playing a video game on an iPad. And the purpose is to improve cognition. A fact is that the game market is growing rapidly, especially for mobile games. So you can see here how the increment of mobile games in the time. Also, the internet is populated with advertisements and information about computer and mobile games that promises to improve cognitive functions. Some of them have been found as fake advertisements, so they are not, as they are not supported in research. So in my team and in my lab, we felt the need to examine the evidence of the use of these games with older adults. So the objective of the project that I'm presenting today, one of the projects, was to answer the research question, what are the effects of computerized cognitive training on cognitive domains of older adults with or without cognitive impairment or dementia? Specifically, we wanted to explore the types and features of computerized cognitive training that have an impact on cognition. We did this by compiling and summarizing the results of existing systematic and meta-analytical reviews about this topic. Why? Because we noticed that in the last 5 years, many systematic literature reviews and meta-analysis have been published in the area of the use of computerized cognitive training with older adults. And what we wanted to do is to compile these reviews and to try to find some common findings. So we carry out a systematic literature search in 6 different databases using these search terms. So you can see this on the slide. So we use different terminology regarding the computerized cognitive training and also covering video games and virtual reality, and we try to be very broad in our search. So regarding the findings, our research resulted in 9 systematic literature reviews. 6 reviews looked at the effects of computerized cognitive training on only healthy older adults. 2 reviews looked at older adults with cognitive impairment or dementia, and 1 review only looked at older adults with cognitive impairment. So in this, I will use this flower to explain our findings. So there was a lot of data extracted from these 9 systematic literature reviews that compiled data from more than 18,000 participants. So that's a good sample size. We grouped these findings as the different computerized cognitive training types and the cognitive domains that were impacted. Then we found other data relevant to clinical practice, such as the schedule of the intervention, the location of the intervention, and the age group most impacted. First, looking at the computerized cognitive training types, there were several types identified. 3 reviews reported on video game training, 2 reviews reported on virtual reality training, and then there were cognitive domain related computerized cognitive training types, which targeted a specific cognitive domain. Reviews reported on multi-domain training, working memory training, inhibition, cognitive flexibility, attention, and processing speed training. The difference between multi-domain training and video game training was based on the author's definition. Video games were defined as computer programs that were initially distributed for entertainment purposes or have a gamified component. The impact of the different computerized cognitive training types on individual cognitive domains were then compiled. Here are the cognitive domains in which reviews were in full agreement on an effect. 5 reviews reported on overall cognition, in which 1 review reported on older adults with mild cognitive impairment or dementia. 2 on verbal memory, of which 1 review reported on older adults with mild cognitive impairment or dementia. 2 reviews reported on cognitive flexibility or shifting. Both reviews reported on healthy older adults. And 2 reviews reported on learning. Both reviews reported on older adults with cognitive impairments. There was also full agreement on some cognitive domains having no effect, and these were verbal fluency, language, and reasoning. Here is a bar graph of the cognitive domains in which there were mixed results. Their percentage on each bar represents the percentage of reviews that were in agreement about that the intervention had an effect on each cognitive domain. Despite having mixed results, majority of reviews found computerized cognitive training to be effective on visual spatial skills, general memory, attention, global cognition, and working memory. Interestingly, all 9 reviews reported on processing speed, but only around half found an effect. And almost all of the reviews reported on executive functioning, but only 1 review found an effect. Factors of intervention that also need to be considered include the schedule of intervention, the setting of where intervention took place, and the age group that computerized cognitive training was most effective on. First, taking a look at the schedule, 2 reviews found that a shorter duration had a greater effect size than longer one. 1 review said that 1 to 6 weeks is more effective than, and the other said that less than 20 hours. However, 2 reviews found that longer durations are needed in order for there to be 4 transfer effects. So 4 transfer effects, meaning longer periods of training, is required for an effect to occur in a different cognitive construct than the one that is being trained using the technology. And finally, 2 reviews also found higher effect sizes for intervention sessions that were at least 30 minutes long. 1 review found that 1 to 3 sessions per week had the highest effect size, and another review found that more than 12 sessions is required for 4 transfer effects. Next, we look to the setting in which the intervention took place. 2 reviews found that home-based intervention was not as effective. 1 review found lab-based intervention had a greater effect than home-based intervention. And another review found home-based intervention to be ineffective altogether. Lastly, looking at the age group for which intervention was most effective, Two reviews also found larger effect size and larger transfer effects in the older group. These are adults of 70 years of age or older than the younger group. So computerized cognitive training has many advantages over traditional pen and paper cognitive training that is broadly used in rehabilitation settings and also at home as a way for practicing cognitive skills. Computer games are multisensory. You have visual and auditory stimulation through color and sound, which increases immersion into therapy. In addition, computerized cognitive training can be instantly adaptable to a user's skills level through instant feedback of their performance. And this also allows continued engagement in the therapeutic activity. Video game training in particular has been found to be effective in impacting cognition in all of the reviews that investigated it, more so than multi-domain training using just computer programs. This is because video games training also has a gamified component. There is an aspect of competitiveness and the potential of being a social activity if played with others. And in this time of social isolation, to have these technical features in which different players can play from different locations is would be a very good feature for making effects using these technologies. All these aspects then increase a user motivation to engage in these kind of activities or interventions. While there is still questions about the impact of computerized cognitive training in certain cognitive domains, it was agreed that computerized cognitive training has an effect on cognition overall. But interestingly, that was also found that the highest level cognitive functioning, like executive functioning, which is a cognitive domain that is used in many of daily life activities, may not be impacted or is very hard to be impacted. Just as the dosage of pharmaceutical changes the effects of a drug, the dosage of or the schedule of intervention, that is the length of a session or the duration of the intervention, the number of sessions total and per week, impacts its effectiveness and should be considered when we implement interventions. While portable technology allows clients to use computerized cognitive training at home, intervention may not be as effective as guiding them in person. This may be because of the adherence to the intervention at home. Having someone there may also help to solve any IT issues that arise, as well as therapists providing users with support during challenging cognitive tasks, which motivates them to continue. And there is also a social component that we provide. While a perception may be that older adults don't enjoy computerized technology, this has been widely disproven. Here in our project, it was found that the older group of older adults may have a larger effect than the younger group. This may be to lower baselines, so there's more room for improvement. Okay, so now I will present in my laboratory and with our research team. We have conducted so far 2 clinical studies in the use of computerized games. We call them serious computer games, and now in the literature that terminology is being used as computer games or mobile games that are not for pure entertainment, but with the intention to improve in some skill, including cognitive skills. So in the Vibrant Minds study, we conducted a single case design in which 20 older adults played paper and pencil activities during 2 to 5 sessions, and then we provided 16 sessions, 30 minutes long, with 4 different games that we created with computer science, that we have a long-standing collaboration. And then our participants again came back to the paper and pencil activities. In this study, we wondered if these computer games were more engaging than the paper and pencil activities, and also if there was a change in cognitive skills after playing the games. Other study is with inpatients, older adults, with and without cognitive impairments, who played a game that was created by therapists at the Ríos Rehabilitation Hospital. So I will talk more about that. This is a randomized control trial feasibility study. So in this slide, it's about the Vibrant Minds platform, that is a suite of tablet-based serious games that include these 4 games that we call Whack-A-Mole, Visual, Word Search, and My Own. So these games can be adapted to the skills of an older adult. And when we tested these games, we measured cognitive skills used the MoCA, the Montreal Cognitive Assessment, and what we found is that in the group of older adults with dementia, after playing the games that is here, the MoCA increased on average 2 points. So that is the absolute number is small, but it may have some clinical implications for these older adults with dementia, an improvement of 2 points in the MoCA. Also, we measure the trail making test. That is a test in which you need to do this path as fast as possible. And we also found that in the group of older adults with dementia, they improve with both paper and pencil activities and the computer games, which means that they were faster compared with the baseline. What was very interesting is that both older adults without dementia and those with dementia improved. But the improvement of older adults with dementia was 3.6 times greater than the improvement in those without dementia. So it seems like playing these games have more effect on older adults with cognitive impairment or dementia. Here is some information about the Glen Rose Grocery game. This game was developed by occupational therapists at the Glen Rose Rehabilitation Hospital. These games is very simple. It's about, and it's very fun, actually. It's about preparing a meal. So for preparing a meal with a special guest, you need to go to the grocery store, and you need to go to the different locations and sections, and you need to buy the ingredients that you need for the recipe, and you have a budget. So at the end, after navigating for the grocery store and selecting your items and paying, if you do the task in a given time and you selected the right ingredients and you manage your budget, so you have more points. And this is the study that we are testing now with inpatients. So far, preliminary results are showing that this game may have an impact also in the cognitive skills assessed by the MoCA. As you can see here, that the MScOT is increasing more in the intervention group so far. We are still doing the analysis. And in the Canadian Occupational Performance Measure, so regarding the performance on shopping skills, so far we are observing an improvement in the performance, a little larger in the intervention group than in the control group. So for future directions, so we are working on the creation of more engaging computerized cognitive training, basically video games, creation of computerized cognitive training related to daily functioning. We feel that this is needed. More consistent metrics for a schedule of intervention. So maybe after research, we will be able to generate some guidelines and more consistent information about the effectiveness of location of the intervention. Now we are about to release the Vibrant Minds Games for a study that we are going to conduct across Canada. So we will release the games, and if older adults are interested in participating and using the games for 12 weeks, so that they can do it. And also we are preparing our protocols for testing the games in long-term facilities, looking for effects in other health-related outcomes, for example, falls reductions, medication reduction, or mood improvements. Okay, so that's all of my presentation. I will stop sharing.
Thank you so much, ladies. Those are wonderful presentations. Now we'd like to open up the floor, and if anyone has any questions for either one of the ladies, please feel free to add them into the question and answer box that's at the bottom of your screen, similar to the chat. So they're happy to answer as many questions as they can during this period.
We've also are sharing our email with Dina, and so if you want to ask the question privately as well, that's another option, is you can email us.
Yeah.
It's great information, so much to take in, right? So it was fantastic. And also you'll be able to watch it again if you feel like you've missed certain components of the presentations, because again, just really great information that has been shared with us today. Okay, so we have one question here is, can you pop up the slide from Adriana that showed which things weren't affected with gaming? That's the first question. So Adriana, would you be able to pull up that slide for us?
And while Adriana does that, I can even pitch, if anyone's interested in this area of those with dementia that do get lost. I am hosting a webinar series. We kicked off the first one yesterday. And so over the next 5 weeks, we're gonna have different perspectives from those that live with dementia, police to researchers that talk about this area and how we can keep this population safe. So if at any point you're interested, feel free to message Dina or even message myself, and I can give you with more information. Okay, Adriana, you can answer that question now.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. So this is is this the slide? I hope this is the slide that.
Yeah. So the slide. Yeah, the one that was.
Yeah.
Showed things that weren't effective with gaming. So I believe this is.
Yeah, they say the slide with the flower, Adri.
Oh, with the flower. Thank you.
Yeah.
When I'm sharing, I don't know why I cannot access to the questions. This one. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, in this we are just the flower has these pedals are about in which cognitive domains we found agreement among all of the reviews that computerized cognitive training has an impact. So now we know that for overall cognition, for verbal memory, for cognitive flexibility, and for learning, we can expect more changes in our older adults because these reviews were in agreement. And the agreement also about no effect was what is in yellow. So for example, in reasoning, verbal fluency, and language, they all were in agreement that computerized cognitive training had no effect. So yeah. Wonderful. So I think that, yeah, this can help with our expectations about the use of this kind of technology with older adults with and without dementia.
Okay, great, thank you. And our next, we have a comment that says, I downloaded the app and set it up already. Thanks for the information.
That's awesome.
Another question is it possible to track how long this improvement will last? Now, I'm thinking it's related to your slide, Adriana.
Yeah. Yes, it is possible. Unfortunately, the studies that we included were included in our review. It's not very common that they presented results of follow-up. The most common result is just after the intervention. But in our study that we did with the games, with the Vibrant Minds games, we had a kind of follow-up after when we removed the games and we came back to the paper and pencil activities. And we found in an individual analysis that some older adults with dementia, in some of them, the cognitive skills keep in a level that was higher than the baseline after removing the computer games, the mobile games. But in others, the cognitive skills try to drop again. So what we have noticed is that one thing is playing the same game is not a good idea because the engagement drops in the week, in about the 6th week. So people start to get boring playing the same game. But the interventions, it seems like, should be at least 8 weeks and more than 12 weeks for expecting some effects. And also that when you remove the games, so in some older adults, the cognitive skills try to drop. So one thing that we can think about is to change, the games every 8 weeks, for example, and it depends on the availability of the technology that is outside, right? So at the University of Alberta with Computing Science, we are working on developing more games. Another option is the Glen Rose Grocery game that is available now for download in iPads. So now it can be done, and this game can be used. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you. We have a question for Noelannah. It says, in your work with persons living with dementia, which types of technology were the most comfortable using? Most comfortable using, sorry.
Yeah. So those that I've spoken to have been, they have earlier onset or they're earlier on in their journeys, so they have mild cognitive impairment. And for those individuals, the Life 360 app seems to be the one that they love the most, just because there's that synonymous relationship where you know where your care partner is and your care partner knows where you are. So there's almost like there's not that abuse of power because you both can see each other, which I thought was quite fascinating. in terms of the commercial devices, a lot of them just find that they're too stigmatizing still. It's something that the commercial companies need to work at. Like if you're going to develop a watch, make it look like a regular watch. Don't make it a big clunky thing. A lot of them aren't quite happy with that. So definitely the Life 360 app seems to be overwhelming that everyone loves it.
Nice. Thank you. So the next question is, have you reached out to the software development community to develop such games specifically for dementia patients? And then, for example, Google for Education?
Not yet, but that's a great idea. So, so far, we have been working at the university in collaboration between occupational therapy and computer science, and also with the Glen Rose Rehabilitation Hospital that has an innovation center, and some engineers and computer science work there. But the next steps of this, of my research is obviously I am thinking about reaching the industry, the community of developers of games. Yeah, that's great, but not yet.
Something to even add with Adri for those of you that are in the audience is that Adriana's research and even my research that I'm up to, we're embedded within a group called AgeWell NCE. And so while we do all of our research and we try to push it out to the academics, one of the main mandates with AgeWell is that we have to develop products that are available to the public that people can start using. So while Adriana is sharing with you her research today, the end goal for us to even get funding in the future is to have stuff that's tangible and you can purchase or use.
Yeah, that's true. Thank you, Noelannah. Yeah, so so as Noelannah said, we are very open to the collaboration with industry and to do partnership in order to make this, to reach the target population.
That's wonderful. Okay, do we have any other further questions before we wrap up the webinar today? And as the ladies mentioned, they're also going to be sharing their contact information, so please feel free to contact them directly, or you can certainly send information to myself, to my email, and we're happy to pass along any further information onto the ladies. Okay, so I just wanted to, in closing, I just wanted to say thank you so much to Noelannah and Adriana for taking time out of their busy day. We know with all the research that you're doing that, you know, to capture your time, that was really not an easy thing. So we really appreciate your time. We're very thankful, and we know that the information that you've presented here is going to help many people. I would also like to thank everybody who attended the webinar today, and just to let you know that when you leave the webinar today, that you'll be asked to complete just a short questionnaire. So if you could please take just a few minutes to fill this out, because it helps us with future planning for future webinars. That would be really appreciated. And also our next webinar is scheduled for Friday, June the 26th. And the title of that webinar is Communicating Effectively, Part 2, and that is with Dr. J.B. Orange. So if you can register on our website, and if you missed Part 1, we have also put a link there to his webinar as well. So thank you again for joining us all today, and enjoy the rest of your day and stay well.